started today. It's a non-media practice. Tomorrow is a practice to the media. So let's talk a little bit about this receiving core that has changed. We've got that. We've got Colin Kaepernick on the docket for today, and we also got our two teams, the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics, who have now made the NBA Finals, clashing against each other. All on the docket today. Stay tuned, guys.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's up, family? Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm your host, Rohan Chakravarthi. I've got my guy Wayne Breezie over here. Wayne, how you doing today, man? It's
It's a
Tuesday.
it's a
Back.
terrific Tuesday, by the way. It's a great Tuesday. I was trying to think another word that starts with a T, but I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be on the show, and we got some stuff. We have some fun with them out there today. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I mean, the last few weeks, we've been having fun thinking about interesting things where we talk about the 49ers. We talked last week about the division and all the different rankings in the division. We've talked about the wide receivers. And today, we're going to focus specifically on the 49ers wide receivers because we've got a couple of dogs. You know that. Debo
Oh yeah.
Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, don't forget George Kittle, with a couple of underrated options as well. So, really, how this team is going to fare will be very interesting to see. Wayne, after all these additions, now that we have really a good sense of who's going to be on the roster competing for the 53,
hmm
what's like your thoughts on this wide receiver group going into?
Initially it was more like, all right, it's Debo, it's Brandon, it's Jawan, and there are three different types of dogs, right? And so I'm like, after that, what is it going to be? I know we signed Ray McLeod in the offseason. We really don't know what he's going to give us. We're hoping we get the best of Ray McLeod and not the very worst of Ray McLeod. And I'm not taking a shot at Ray. I'm just saying we won't know because he was a Steeler for a while. So it depends on how the 49ers utilize him. The good thing is he's with the 49ers, right? And Kyle Shanahan knows how to utilize his wide receivers, right? If they possess a certain type of traits, Kyle can get the best out of them, right? If they don't have those specific traits, then they kind of fall to the wayside. So the good thing about having Raymond McLeod, he stays healthy. So that was a good addition. And then they added in some other, free agent signings, right? They Malik Turner, Keyshawn Johnson, Marcus Johnson. They added in some, elite pieces that are going to come in here and compete. I think Austin Mack was another one of the wide receivers. And then they went to the draft route, right? They drafted Danny Gray, okay,
Right.
with the fourth round pick, right? And then they signed two other wide receivers, undrafted guys in Tay Martin and Taser Mack, right? So
Mhm.
we can call, if they both make the squad somehow, we can call them Tay Tay because I believe like they both bring two different dynamics to the wide receiving core. So no, I mean after your third wide receiver on any team, it starts to drop, right? Like you would think the production is going to drop. But it looks like the 49ers brought in guys where after the third wide receiver, the production can either maintain or somehow increase.
Right, definitely. And you talk about Ray McLeod, right? Really, Ray McLeod has not exploded as a wide receiver, but it's not his fault. When you talk about Ray McLeod, he's been hindered in an offense manned by a weakened Brand Roethlisberger arm over the last couple of seasons. Really, last year he had his first really big shot at getting higher volume. Had 66 targets, caught only 39 passes, 277 yards. And when you're thinking about it, 7.1 yards per reception for a receiver, that's not that high. But when you dive deeper into it, you realize Ben Roethlisberger didn't throw the ball far. His air yards were among some of the worst in the NFL. And McLeod, he works well after the catch. So really, with his speed and acceleration, his skills aren't being used as much because he's just used as a short field wide receiver. And in San Francisco, don't expect too much different because he can excel with these bubble screens, with these end arounds, with all these different plays, but also at times he has a potential to take him deep. And Grant Cohn did say earlier today that McLeod looked good in practice last week, so that's something to take into account as well. But overall, this wide receiver group looks stronger. People are going to be more developed. Jawan Jennings, Brandon Aiyuk, after starting the season off slow for several reasons, Aiyuk with the hamstring injury and then getting back into the rotation as a wide receiver,
Mhm.
really only took off in week 8. Jawan Jennings obviously was the backup to Mohamed Sanu, who got injured in the Arizona game back in week 9 last year. Then he took over and he exploded, getting majority of his production after that. So you have these two guys now, after their several experiences, getting a full season under their belts, and going into the year known that they're going to be the starter. And before I continue, 49er Media, 49er Chanel, thank you both for tuning in. Very much appreciate it here on this Tuesday.
It's good, family.
Yeah, but that's mainly it, right? Where you have a new quarterback, and so it's going to be very interesting how this kind of dynamic plays out, especially early in the season, because the 49ers and the guys I just mentioned had slow starts last year. Can they change the narrative, especially when they're trying to get under wraps offensively with the rookie quarterback?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Kyle Shanahan finds a way to get these guys involved. You're talking about Brandon Aiyuk, who had a slow start. I, did he had a slow start due to what? And to the end of this day, I feel like we still don't know what it was, right? So we're going off saying, "Oh, he was in the doghouse." Was it the simple fact that he wasn't a great run block, a great blocker in the run game, or downfield and doing certain things like that? Was he not getting out of his routes good enough? Was he not running good routes? Was he not getting open? There's so many things that we could not tell from Brandon Aiyuk, but whatever it was, it just wasn't working for Kyle Shanahan, and so Kyle Shanahan had to go a different route. I tell you what, though, when Brandon Aiyuk figured it out, or whatever it was, I mean, look, the kid finished with 846 yards on the season, and then it was
Exactly.
almost like, oh my gosh, like he, if he didn't have the slow start, bro, like he would have been 1,000-yard wide receiver, right? So if you do the math, he was only 100 something yards short of a 50 something yards short from being 1,000-yard wide receiver, right? And so it's just like, oh man, like if Brandon Ayuk could have caught a couple of more passes and did this and did that, he had 5 touchdowns on the season. So he's averaging what, 5 touchdowns a year his first 2 years in the NFL. He went up about 100 yards in production when you're talking about yards, and they utilized him more last year, even in the run game. So you saw him run some plays out of the wide receiver position as a running back. So like Brandon Ayuk is only projecting up. And I think that's what you have to look at it. Like it's a trend upwards. So who's the other trend upwards, right? Is Debo Samuel's probably still trending upwards. And I know his status is a little bit unknown because like the 49ers, they're like still not at ease with with the contract talks. But we know, you and I know, it's gonna get done. It's just when, and so we just patiently waiting. So I'm kind of just like claiming Debo, but Debo is gonna trend up as well because what is the NFL gonna do to stop him from trending up? Right? He runs ferociously. He catches the passes. Right? I mean, I know he led the team with drops, but I mean he's also leading the team with yards. So like you got to kind of give a little bit, like you know what I'm saying. As far as his touchdown production, it went up. So Debo trended up, and like you said earlier, Jawan Jennings trended up, right? He got his
Right.
chance. And so you're starting to say, oh my gosh, man, like I said this at the very beginning of the show, if Kyle Shanahan gets like a specific type of wide receiver with specific traits that he can work with. And what I mean by traits, I mean just damn near dog. Like they just got to be a dog. I don't care what kind of dog it is. Just be a dog somehow, some way in Kyle Shanahan's eyes, because that gets you on the field. When it's your time to come in, Jawan Jennings took that opportunity and rolled with it, right? And now look at him. Look at him. He's trending upwards as a wide receiver, and the 49ers better find a way to keep him because I can tell you right now, he might be the exit out to like how Kendrick Bourne was because you drafted another guy like Danny Gray.
Most definitely. Brandon Ayuk, you mentioned him, and his first 2 seasons, they were not bad by any means. When you look at the games where he was really featured, his entire rookie season, Brandon Ayuk played 12 games, started in 11 of them. And if you take that 12-game stretch, I know he was inactive because of a various injury and then COVID reasons caused him to miss a couple of games. But if you take that 12-game stretch over a 17-game season, it's a 1,000-yard season. He caught 85 passes,
for 1,060 yards over a 17-game season. His actual stats were 60 receptions for 748 yards. And then, so really what I'm trying to say is if he's really playing the majority of the year, like he's shown the capability to last year, he will eclipse 1,000 yards. Then you go forward to next year, or sorry, not next year, last year, where he finally starts getting in the groove in week 7, where he starts to get really into the offensive mold and where he's featured a lot more. From not week 7, week 8 to week 18, Brandon Aiyuk had 730 of his 826 yards. That's a ton of his production in the last half of the season. And in that first half, he wasn't that productive. He wasn't featured as much. But in that second half, if you take that second half over 17 games, that's 1,128 yards. So really what we've seen from Brandon Aiyuk is that if he can be consistent with that level of production over a 17-game period, he's going to eclipse 1,000 yards. And that's what we expect of him heading into year 3, that 1,000-yard mark, which he's shown that he's capable of doing in long stretches. He just now needs to compile it over a 17-game season. One thing I want to bring up with you that I thought was fairly interesting regarding Brandon Aiyuk. When we look at George Kittle last year, George Kittle had 910 yards over 14 games. Make that over 17 games, that's 1,105 yards.
Mhm.
Now, 49ers didn't necessarily address the tight end position, which means George Kittle might need to block a little more than he might have wanted. Do you think that Aiyuk eclipses George Kittle in terms of receiving yards this year, or do you think that George Kittle still is extremely featured in the passing game and potentially even more than last year?
You got to think about how they utilize George Kittle, and I know you mentioned the blocking, but George Kittle is not like he's the type of tight end that like catches a pass and takes it to the house, right? He's looking to make big playability whenever he catches a ball. So if he happens to catch a 15-yard pass and makes a move and puts a move on a guy, and he's trying to take it to the house, so you can't like really factor in what George Kittle is going to do. You just know that he's a big time playmaker. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the target to throw for 1,000 yards. I think he just gets his 1,000 yards supernaturally, right? Like he kind of says, yo, give me the ball. I'm going to make it happen, whether it's behind the line of scrimmage or whatever, because I'm not going to go down and I'm not going to get tackled. So there's a possibility that he still is able to eclipse his 1,000 yards, even if it's not actually written into the play. If Kyle Shanahan throws a screen pass to George Kittle, be like, he's expecting George Kittle to get a first down, but George Kittle's expecting to get a touchdown. You kind of get what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard to factor that in, whereas Brandon Naiyuk is a wide receiver, and as a first-round draft pick, he needs to be getting over 1,000 yards. And I think my expectations for Brandon Naiyuk is, dude, you're a first-round wide receiver. It's time to put up first-round wide receiver numbers, because we talk all this trash about Debo and how he has to go out there and prove it himself. Debo wasn't even a first-round pick, bro, but Brandon Naiyuk was. And so I'm expecting Brandon Naiyuk to really, in his third year, be settled in this offense. Like, really, you can tell he has a rapport with Trey Lance. Super settled in this offense. And I think Brandon Naiyuk, 800, hold on, he had 826 yards, right? So if you do the
Yeah.
math, 826 yards, 5 touchdowns, 56 receptions off of 84 targets, right? He was averaging almost 15 yards a catch, okay? This kid is going to go out there. Now, he had 2 fumbles on the season. It's all Gucci, right? No one cares. At the end of the day, I mean, we care. He lost one of the fumbles, got one back. But at the end of the day, this kid is going to continue to progress, and I think he eclipses that 1,000-yard mark. Why? The type of passes he's going to be receiving, right?
Right.
He's going to be able to run different types of routes with the quarterback like Trey Lance, and so you got to factor that in there. And that's why I think Kittle still gets his yards, because it's just what Kittle does. But I'm expecting Brandon Naiyuk to get his yards. So if Kittle, for example, you mentioned George Kittle, if Kittle, let's say he had 900 yards, let's say he only gets 500 of those yards, I'm okay with that. Why? Because that means that the other pass catchers better be moving on up. You kind of get where I'm going with it? So, like,
Yeah,
I'm okay if Kittle only gets 500. But what if he gets more red zone touchdowns now, and his touchdown numbers go up? So I think we see a different side of Kittle with the addition of what Trey Lance is going to be able to do with his weapons.
And Kittle, when we talk about his last year production, he got nearly a third of his production. He played in 14 games. Let's remember that. And he got nearly a third of his production in 2 games, the 2 consecutive games in week 13 and week 14 when they played Seattle and Cincinnati, where he had 181 yards in one game, 151 in the other.
Yeah.
So really, like, you're right in that it's sporadic, right? There's a ton of these little stretches where Kittle will just go off and it's unexpected. He just goes off and just showcases the talent that he truly has. And really the biggest unknown in this entire formula is Trey Lance. If the 49ers entrust Trey Lance to throw the ball a good amount, well, obviously these receiving numbers are going to go up just based on pure volume. But if they play a more conservative approach, we'll see. And obviously, it's who develops the better rapport with Lance out of these receivers, because that's who he's going to be feel more comfortable targeting, and that might lead to some more early success with those receivers. Because we saw it last year, Jimmy Garoppolo really looked to target Deebo Samuel in that first game. Deebo Samuel had around 13 to 15 targets, and so that just continues. That just continued over the course of the year, leading to Deebo Samuel's monster year. Now, when we talk about Jawan Jennings, right, I think it's a very interesting point that you made up. Sure, when you look at his numbers, you're like, wow, this is your wide receiver 3. He only had 282 yards last year, only 38 targets. But once again, let's hone in on the point where he actually started getting featured in the offense.
Okay.
Prior to week 9, because week 8 was the week that Sanu got injured. Prior to week 9, the highest snap count that Jawan Jennings got in a single game was 9 snaps, 16% of the offensive snaps, and that was in Indianapolis. Following that, he never dropped below 37, and really it was near the 50% mark every single time. And so when I look at that, that just shows that Jawan Jennings, obviously, you can't really utilize those first 8 weeks because he just wasn't being featured. When he was really being featured in the second half of the year, from weeks 9 to 17, or 10 to 18, Jawan Jennings had 251 of his 282 yards. Put that over a 17-game season, 474 yards. But that's not even the most important part. 8 touchdowns over a 17-game season. 8 touchdowns. He was a red zone machine last year, had 4 touchdowns in those 9 games. Imagine him getting 8 touchdowns in 2022. That would be great.
So you're projecting him to get 8 touchdowns in 2022.
I'm not projecting him. I'm just saying that based on his last year statistics from that second half of the year, if you just span that over a 17-game stretch, it's 8 touchdowns. So
and I hear you. It's crazy because it's like, all right, 24 receptions, 282 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Like 5. Guess who else had 5 touchdowns?
I'm sure it was it Brandon Naiyuk?
It was Brandon Naiyuk, your first round pick. And Deebo only had 1 more than both of them.
Right.
And so no, am I expecting Deebo to get double digit? And this is a legit question, right? Will any wide receiver on the 49ers get double digit touchdowns? And I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go no. And the only reason why I'm going with no is because the way they spread the ball around. So that's why it's unfair to say that Deebo has to go out there and prove it again, right? When he's not going to always be the featured guy. It's different. Like Devontae Adams, you knew he was getting the ball, right? Like they're not Hopkins, they're going to go. Justin Jefferson, that's the guy. I know Adam Thielen is there, but that's the guy. Like, with the 49ers, you just mentioned George Kittle, bro. George Kittle had 4 or 5 touchdowns too, didn't he? I'll look it up.
Yeah, he only had I think it was
He had 6 touchdowns, bro. Kittle and George and Deebo tied with 6 touchdowns. So they tied for the most with the San Francisco in receiving. That's 6 plus 6 plus 10. That's 26 touchdowns, bro, between just those guys. Didn't mention anybody else. So the 49ers are getting They're getting the TDs. They're just spread around. This is a good problem to have, bro. This is a great problem to have because you can't just say, oh, we'll take out Kittle. Oh, you can't just say, oh, you know what? We're just going to plan for Deebo Samuel. Oh, you can't just say, oh, we're going to plan for Brandon Naiyuk. Okay, because somebody else is going to eat. And this is why you said Jawan Jennings might be projected to get those 8 touchdowns if he plays over that 17-game span in a regular season. Now, here's where it gets tricky because the 49ers, I really think the third spot, Rohan, and you can talk me out of it because I'm easily to be talked out of things. I really think that third spot is not solidified. I love Jawan Jennings. They brought in Ray Mcleod for a reason.
No, at the moment, you're right. I don't think it's solidified. Now, do I believe there's a favorite in Jawan Jennings? Yes. Okay. However, do I think it's solidified? No, because the 49ers, we've seen them embrace competition. Hell, we saw it last year when Trent Sherfield got the start over Brandon Naiyuk in week 1 when nobody expected that, given that Naiyuk, like you said, had that first-round status. However, the 49ers embrace competition, and I'm not necessarily worried as much about the start. I'm worried about the play time. Who will get the higher play time? And really, it's who fares better in this offense with Trey Lance. Everything now is tailored to Trey Lance. Now, the one reason that I can think of that might make Jennings a slight edge over the others, safety blanket. Trey Lance in that OTA period last week on Tuesday, 12 of his 16 passes went to running backs and tight ends. I'm not trying to take much out of it, right? It's one practice. It's not a big deal. However, what does that tell me? He's going through his progressions and he's looking for the checkdowns. He's looking for the safety blankets. And that's why I think a guy like reliable Jawan Jennings, Mr. First Down on third downs over there, that's why I think he might get a featured role because he's the epitome of a safety blanket on the third down conversion. And that's what makes the life easier, especially on those in the early stretch when Trey Lance really needs to get the grasp of those third downs.
And I agree. I agree 100% because you saw whether it was Trey Lance out there or whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo, the ball wasn't perfectly thrown, and Jawan Jennings found a way to catch it, come up with it, and convert and get a first down. So you're right, man. There should be some favoritism in there, but he still has to do something that's going to woo his coach, right? Like something still has to say, oh, man. And I believe he's doing that. Like, don't get it twisted. I like Jawan Jennings. I was happy when they drafted him. I like when they go after underdog guys, and those guys come in there and they play for the world, Craig. Like, I love it. So I'm really a big fan of Jawan Jennings, and I'm not trying to take a shot at him in any kind of way, but we got some competition because what is Danny Gray going to do? Right? All right, now you got speed. And so I like what you said because it's going to come down to matchups, right? It's going to come down to matchups. So Kyle Shanahan's going to play chess every single game. Why? Because now he has a wide receiver with speed. He has a wide receiver that can run routes. He has a wide receiver that can, find ways to get open in the intermediate game, short underneath stuff. But all of them can do that. The only thing that they're all lacking is that 4.3 track speed down the field, right? And so you get that now with Danny Gray, and now all of a sudden the DBs are just like, oh, shoot, what do we do? Do we let this guy one-on-one just blow past the guy and not put safety help on the top? Well, if you put the safety help on the top, guess who's going to be over the middle just sitting, chilling, wait? And this is why I said George Kittle will still be featured in this offense because he will be right there in the middle waiting for that pass when there's no safety. And George Kittle on a safety, I'll take George Kittle any day over a safety. That's why I said you can't factor in George Kittle yards because they're not manufactured. They're like earned. Like he goes out there and grabs them shits. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, give me the ball. I'm going to get extra yards out of this catch. That's George Kittle.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something because we had two different teams that went deep, right? We had the 2019 49ers. We had the 2021 49ers. One went to the Super Bowl. One went to the NFC Championship. And last year, I think I'm not going to be the only one to say this, but I thought our depth on the receiving core was weak. Travis Benjamin, Trent Sherfield, they should not be playing significant snaps in an NFL football game in the regular season. Respectfully, of course, but obviously there's better talent the 49ers could have had. We saw it. That's why Travis Benjamin only played 40 snaps. That's why it was featured to just 4 guys out there. Now, in 2019, I think there was more options, probably because they utilized the running back group a lot more. But I thought Ross Dwelly had a pretty solid year in 2019. You had Kittle, you had Bourne, you had Samuel, you had Emmanuel Sanders, and then you also had the running backs. So when you look at the touchdown distribution from 2019 to 2021, 2021, we threw for 26 total touchdowns. 2019, we threw for 28 total touchdowns. So it's not much of a disparity, right? But in 2019, we only had 2 guys have 5 touchdowns or more. Everybody else had 3 or less.
Yeah.
That's not that big. It's really a disparity in a variety of guys that caught touchdowns. In 2021, however, there were 2 guys that caught 6, 2 guys that caught 5, and nobody else on the team had more than 1.
There you go.
Do you think that we're going to get the 2019 formula or the 2021 formula this year? I think it might like you said, I think it might slide toward the 2019 formula where it's more spread out because we have so many options and so many different touchdown weapons really based on where we are on the field.
And so, and because of that, I'm okay if Kittle, Debo don't get 10 touchdowns. I'm actually happy if the ball is spread around. Let's say Kittle gets 3, Debo gets 4, Naiyuk gets 3, Jennings gets 3, Ray Mcleod gets 1. we got to figure out who gonna make the squad. Are we going to carry 6 wide receivers or 7 wide receivers? That's the one thing we got to figure out. Like, what do we think the roster's going to go? But just think about the production. I think Kyle Shanahan has a number, right?
Right.
And so that number is all right. We got 26 last year because you just said they increased their touchdowns every year. So we got 26 last year. I think the number's gonna be 30 this year, bro. I want 30 touchdowns. Is that pushing? Is that asking for too much?
I don't think so, because really overall you expect about 50 total touchdowns, maybe 50 to 55, somewhere around there in the number of total touchdowns.
That's total touchdowns. I'm talking 30 passing, so 20 rushing. That's pretty good.
Right. And last year it was 22 rushing. In 2019 it was 23 rushing. So you can expect more around there.
Yeah, I think that would be, give or take a 3. I think the number the goal they should look for is 30 passing touchdowns and 20. Now they're gonna get to 50, and then anything else over 50 is a bonus, right? But they're gonna get to 50. I can see that easily. Ha 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 ha. This contribution, this was funny too because I had no choice but to laugh at it, and then his name is effing ha ha. Like go figure.
Were you about to say go F yourself?
I don't think I was going to go say. I don't think that's what was going to come out. Warriors in 5. I love it. We'll talk about that. Yeah. We'll end the show with that.
Don't worry about it. We'll bring this back up. But it's definitely a good debate. And, 30 touchdowns, obviously it's an optimistic view with Trey Lance. But just given the mold of this offense, 30 touchdown doesn't necessarily mean you need 50 deep balls or whatever number, right?
Right.
We get touchdowns in a variety of ways. Look at week 7 last year. How Deebo Samuel saved our season with an 83-yard touchdown. Remember where that pass went? 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, okay? 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and that was an 83-yard run and touchdown. So we can get touchdowns in so many different ways.
Exactly. That's not our and so who was on my show? Someone was on the show and said that Kyle Shanahan wasn't it was Terradome. He was saying that Kyle wasn't a genius. And I kind of understood where he was coming from because the players – I know Kyle draws up plays, but the players have to execute those plays. And so, we have a variety of execution type style players, right? I'm excited to see what Ray does when he gets the ball in his hand. The only thing I'm asking Ray to do once he gets the ball, because I believe Ray is going to make plays, right? Just hold on to the damn ball. That's it. That's all I'm saying. You're going to get hit from behind. Cat's going to be punching the ball out. He's going to see a lot more action, and I don't want his season to end up somewhere in a doghouse because he couldn't hold on to the ball. So let's do this exercise, right? Let's minus George Kittle, right? Let's go with Deebo, Brandon, Jawan, top 3, right? How many receivers? And let's ask the people out there in the chat, since everybody's saying Warriors in 6. I see you, Chris. Chris, yesterday you said 5, so you're getting a little bit better. Yesterday it was 5. How many wide receivers do the 49ers carry on their active roster? 53-man roster. How many wide receivers make this squad? We got 3 already for a lock.
I know my answer. I want to see what the chat says. So chat, how many do you think we carry? Is it 5 receivers? Is it 6 receivers? Is it 7 receivers?
I don't think it would be more than 7. If it is, Kyle Shanahan's got something up his sleeve. Every year he goes with a different position group where he overstocks too, by the way. So there's a possibility it could be more than 7. So let's see what they put out there. Chris is saying 6. All right. That's kind of like the magic number, 6. It's kind of like the normal number. Oh, you've been saying 6. Brian is saying 7. All right. Brian. I see you wanted to come. You could be on the next call-in show for sure. Kylie's saying 6. I'm liking this. 6, 7, 6. Bobby's saying 5. Can we start there and then work our way up? Kenny's saying 7. All right, we're gonna start with 5. Bobby, I wasn't expecting this number, but I'm glad you put this in here because now we got some work to do. All right, Rohan.
Yeah.
Danny Gray is gonna be the 4th wide receiver. Agree or disagree?
To start the season, I'll say disagree, but he could end as the 4th receiver on this.
Well, when I say so what I mean by 4th, I mean he's making the roster regardless, right? So
he's in that way, yeah. Yes, Danny Gray,
yeah.
I think we have 5 locks right now.
Okay.
I think we have 5 locks because Mcleod with the guaranteed money is a lock to make the roster.
Okay, so that's the 5, right? So there's our 5. We got Jawan Jennings. I'm sorry, let me start with the beginning. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Naiyuk, Jawan Jennings, Ray McLeod, and Danny Gray. That's your 5 lock. Is that enough to start to Eric Dana saying it's at least 5. I'm with you. What's going on? He called in earlier on today's show. He had some significant, amazing takes on the whole situation with Coward, man. I thought it was really good, really insightful. All right, so Bobby, we done answered your 5, right? We answered your 5. Bobby, now I want you to go back and rethink your number because now we got to go to 6. So who's going to be the 6? So the exercise is we got to fulfill their void. So we got to come up with at least 7. Because that's the number, that's the highest number I see in here. They would have put an 8, we would try to come up with 8. All right, so you ready? Who's your 6th receiver? And I'll tell you my 6th receiver.
Really, it's a huge unknown at the moment on the 6th receiver because
I know.
we've got undrafted guys that can make waves. Now, because they're undrafted and because of the amount of competition, I do believe the 49ers think they can stash them on the practice squad. I'll say this first. I don't believe it's going to be 5. I think the minimum you started with is 6. I'll tell you 2 things. In 2019, the 49ers carried 7 receivers on the roster.
Yep.
That was unprecedented at the time. And the reason was because they had one of their running backs in Jerick McKinnon go on IR, which is why they only carried 3 running backs on the roster to start 2019. And they also had multiple injuries in Trent Taylor and Jalen Hurd, which is why they had carried an extra guy in Jordan Matthews to make the roster in 2019. So they had 7 in 2019. That was a little unprecedented. Last year in 2021, they carried 6. They carried 4 running backs, obviously Mostert, Sermon, Hasty, and Mitchell. And then they carried 6 receivers, Naiyuk, Samuel, Trent Sherfield, Mohamed Sanu, Jalen Hurd, and then Jawan Jennings. So I'm thinking it's going to be 6. Now, when we look at our roster right now, right, we've got 2 special teamers in terms of veterans, and Marcus Johnson, who played for Indianapolis last year, caught 9 passes, 160 yards. And then you also have Malik Turner, spent time with Seattle, and he's also had special teams capability in the past as well. Like I said, you have the 2 undrafted guys in Mack and then Tay Martin. I like Tay Martin. If he makes the roster, I would definitely not be surprised. But I do believe for now the 2 undrafted guys will end up on the practice squad for the 49ers in 2022 to start. Remember, you can elevate wide receivers from the practice squad, and I'm sure there will be injuries, so some people might make the active roster itself. That's my initial breakdown right now in that the 2, I'm going to eliminate those 2. Do you think the same on that path?
I think it's a little bit tricky because, I mean, just because you stashed them on the practice squad don't mean that they remain there because they're eligible to be taken. And so if you really like a guy like Malik Turner, you may have to allow him to make the roster. Now with the new rules, you can stash more veterans on the practice squad. So when I look at these receivers, since nobody picked up a Malik Turner and a Marcus Johnson, right, and a Keyshawn Johnson, since nobody really picked these dudes up, right?
And that is why, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I was actually going to say that leads exactly to the next point that I have, in that because you can do that, I think you don't necessarily have to eliminate all options. And that's why I actually like the 2 rookies, right? I don't think both of them make the roster. I think that is a little unprecedented. Correct. But I do believe that Tay Martin has a very good argument to beat out. I think the final 2 candidates are Tay Martin and then Malik Turner. Those are my final 2 candidates at the moment.
Yeah. And I actually like Malik Turner more. I like his film better than I like Marcus Johnson. But everybody, why is nobody talking about Keyshawn Johnson? All right. And then there's another wide receiver too, who's also a veteran that I could see that's probably going to make that practice squad. He's been in the league for a little while. Austin Mack. He's another kid.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm trying to stash Mack, possibly Johnson. I mean Austin Mack. I think you put Taser Mack on the practice squad as well. You sign Tay Martin to that active roster. So that would be an undrafted guy with a drafted wide receiver. Then you take one of those extra veterans, and the veteran will be Malik Turner. I like what you did. And then if those guys don't clear the practice squad, then it's all good. But at least you were able to, You know what I'm saying? To bolster up that roster. So I think 6 is the number 2. If I had to take the 7th guy, I think it would be Keyshawn Johnson. I know we're not seeing a lot from him. You got a lot of people don't really even know who he is. I just like the fact that he's 6'1", 201 pounds. He was a 6th-round draft pick in 2019 to Arizona. Let's see. He didn't play in 2021, but in 2020, he had 15 receptions off of 23 targets, 173 yards. He fits right in with the 49ers receivers. He was averaging 11.5 yards a carry. He had a long at 45, which is good because you want to see, is this going to be a long guy? And don't be surprised if you see him doing stuff in when training camp starts, the same things you just saw Trent Sherfield do. I just got this weird, funny feeling about him. If he has a great training camp, you can't put him on the practice squad. Just like Trent Sherfield, he had a great camp and you could not stash him on the squad. You had to find a way to make him make this team, or he would have been gone, and you never knew when you were going to need him.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think the argument is good. The one thing I'll say against Keyshawn Johnson, they signed him earlier in the year to one of those
Futures
reserve
Yes.
contracts. Exactly. The one thing I'll say against Keyshawn Johnson is just his lack of special teams play. He hasn't played on special teams back in 2019 or 2020. When you look at it, it's 4% and then 2%. And so Keyshawn Johnson, like the one thing that I think the 49ers might value from this guy that they carry onto the roster is that because not many of their other receivers, because I don't expect Danny Gray to play much special teams. We'll see, but I don't expect it. I expect only McLeod out of the receiver group to play special teams because he's that kick returner, punt returner guy. Now, when you want the other guy to play special teams, that 6th guy, there's really only one receiver, in my opinion, that has the special teams pedigree, and that's Malik Turner.
Malik Turner.
He's 26, and his special teams ability has increased over the past years. When you look at it, he started off in Seattle in 2019, where he did play with Brian Schneider, our special teams coordinator, had 39% of the special team snaps, bumped up to 59% this past season. I think he's got the biggest special teams pedigree, and really you want experience at the position where you were hurt the most last season. I think that's why he has a good argument to potentially make it as a 6th guy. Tay Martin, though, the one thing I want to say about him, big body, 6'3", 185, caught 10 touchdowns last year alongside 1,000 yards at Oklahoma State. What I was talking about earlier, remember, that reliable option at receiver, Tay Martin fits that. Good hands and a touchdown machine. And so that's something the 49ers with a rookie quarterback might covet. And so it'll be very interesting what direction they go, who flashes at camp, because obviously some of these inexperienced guys, well, how do you see what talents they have? With experience. So that's something we'll figure out in training camp. But yeah, that's my prediction at the moment. Probably it's between Malik Turner and Tay Martin. And if they want to go the special teams route, try and bolster that unit, it's Malik Turner. If they want to go the reliable route, try and get younger at the position group while also getting a guy with good hands, that's Tay Martin.
All right, man. There it is, man. That's the wide receiver group, man. In a nutshell, man. And like you said, can't wait till camp starts. Can't wait to see these guys get out there. Can't wait to see these guys run their routes. Can't wait to see what these guys are going to do with the quarterback and Trey Lance. And it's cool that that we have guys that Trey Lance is familiar with and guys that Trey Lance still has to get familiar with, right? So it's like they kind of brought in a new regime. I thought they would have tried to keep like a Trent Sherfield. He kind of seemed like one of those the security blankets, but I think you kind of get an upgrade when you sign a Ray McLeod for the simple fact that you get the special teams piece out of him. Not saying Trent was a bad special teams player, but he just wasn't a special teams guy. Like he had some good hits, some down there, gunning, doing whatever he had to do, but I really want to see what Ray McLeod is going to do, and I think that was one of the main reasons why they went out and signed Ray McLeod, not just to see what he can do out of the backfield, running the ball or catching the passes in the flats and things like that, but really what can he do to elevate the special teams unit. It was the weakest unit on the team in 2021, regardless of how you want to look at it. It was the weakest, period, point blank. It wasn't the secondary, it wasn't the whatever, it was special teams. But it's funny because when special teams needed to make a play, they made a play. When the offense couldn't get it done in Green Bay, special teams made a play. And that's where you got to shout out to Jordan Willis and Talanoa Hufanga, man. They had their heads up and they were ready to go. So I definitely love your 6 picks, and those would be my 6 guys as well. If I had to add a seventh, it would probably be like a guy like Keyshawn Johnson, just because
Yeah.
I think you can bring him in here and add you some depth to like that, to that wide receiver pool. God forbid you get an injury to go down. You bring him in there, you put him in the game, you kind of won't skip a beat. You know what I'm saying? But you're only
Mhm.
going to get a wide receiver out of him.
Yeah. We've got a question here from the Romelia Sports Report. The 49ers have Bosa and Debo contracts to get to, and Jimmy Garoppolo's 25 mil is there as he stays. Is it a must-win season now? Because next year there's many key players with expiring contracts. What do you think?
It's a great question. And I'm assuming he's talking about our defense. As far as especially on the edge, we'll have one edge rusher, maybe two. I can't remember what Jordan Willis's contract. I can't remember if it was 1 year or 2
Yeah,
years.
1 year deal. Yeah, 1 year deal.
It was a 1 year deal. So Nick Bosa is the only guy that we're bringing back, and obviously Drake Jackson because he's on the rookie. So we'll have two edge rushers on the books for next year. Nick Bosa was option. His 5th year was option, so they don't have to necessarily work out a deal as we speak. So they have time. The 49ers already optioned him his 5th year. Nick Bosa next year is going to make 18.9 million. He's going to make almost $19 million, right? So he's going to get that money. And I'm sure he's fine with $19 million while they work on a contract. As far as Debo's contract is concerned, I know that Jimmy Garoppolo's $25.5 million is still on the books. And the 49ers are going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to get creative. And I think that's probably some of the issue that's holding things up. Me personally, all the stuff that happened with Debo, I think it was just all contractual type of business moves, removing the stuff from here, forcing the 49ers to do this, kind of look this way, asking for a trade, because it only boosts up his stock. And you got to look at these players, man. They're commodities, right? They're business pieces, right? And they have to figure out what they got to do best for themselves because nobody else is going to do it, man. Everything is a la carte in the NFL, man. So his agent, his planners are looking out for the best interest in him, and the teams is looking out for the best interest in the team. And so now they just got to figure out where is that middle line? Like, where can we come to an agreement? And I think they come to an agreement. I think Debo wants to be here. It's not just because he said I want to be traded does not mean he does not want to be here. I need people to get that through their thick effing skull. He's requesting a trade because he wants to get paid, right? So he's trying to up his value. So he's going to go out there and see what his worth is on the market, right? I mean, that's what you would do. It's what I would do. I want to see what my worth is on the market. Freaking Trent Williams did that. Nobody complained, but he was also a free agent. But he didn't request a trade, but he wanted to see what it was like to test the market. He tested the market. Next thing you know, in the 25th hour, Kyle makes the call. If this even comes down to the 25th hour, Deebo Samuel will be a 49er. So I think they figure it out. Even with Jimmy Garoppolo's money on the books, it's just going to be really weird how they're going to do the wording in the contract, like how they're going to get him paid. And once they figure that out, man, it's crazy. It's going to be crazy because Trey Lance will now have Deebo back. Like and that's how I know the 49ers aren't stupid. That's how I know they're going to get it done because I'm putting in Trey Lance, who has 2.5 games of experience of football. I need the best players out on the field to covet that.
Yeah, to me, when we were looking at this question, in my opinion, every season is a must-win season for the 49ers in this last stretch. Back in 2019, following that, I thought every year was a must-win season. 2021 was, 2022 is, and then really through the duration of Trey Lance's rookie contract, because as I've said a couple of times, what is the formula for winning Super Bowls? Or at least getting to them. It's getting a quarterback on that rookie contract. Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes twice, and then Joe Burrow last year. The past 5 Super Bowls have had quarterbacks on rookie contracts make the Super Bowl. That's important, and so that's why I think really this is our window for must-win seasons. Now, that second portion, because there's many key players with expiring contracts, I actually don't think that that's as big of a deal as it was this offseason. I think last year, if you're basing it off that criteria only, I think last year was a bigger win now season because of the amount of free agents that we had on 1-year deals. The reason was the previous season was the COVID year. Everyone came back on a 1-year deal because they couldn't find deals, talking about K'Wan Williams, DJ Jones, and then they embraced the letting go of left guard Laken Tomlinson because of the price. So I think that's important, right? This next coming off season, though, I think a majority of our core is still intact. You still have Fred Warner, Trent Williams, Ark Armstead, George Kittle. And then what did the 49ers do this offseason? Every contract that they kind of gave out to non-49er free agents was not a one-year deal. It was multi-year deals. Ray McLeod, 2-year deal. George Odom, 3-year deal. Charvarius Ward, 3-year deal. Oren Burks, 2-year deal, right? It's like multiple year contracts. That's very important to me, not to me, to the 49ers, because that just shows they're trying to build a core for the next couple of seasons, and also to avoid that specific problem you bring up, the expiring deal problem. Because when you get that, when you get these multi-year deals, then you focus on the slim number of people that have expiring deals. And I'm not saying the 49ers are devoid of those players, right? You have an Mbucom, you have a Jimmy Ward, you have a Emmanuel Mosley, and these key contributors that are free agents. However, those are the main focuses next year because you don't have so many holes that you have to fill up, given that you have players on the roster. So I do believe it's a win now season, but I don't believe the expiring contract issue is as big of an issue as people think.
I hear what you're saying. It can be, though, because it depends on which contracts are expiring, right? And so last year, a lot of the 1-year deals that expired, you can go out there and get, as they proved this year, you can go out there and find other guys that are willing to play on 1-year deals, right? And so I get where you're coming from, but we're talking about Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair, like these are like pending that they ball out, which we know that's something they can do, especially on this defense, especially the way the league is shaping out. I mean, these guys might be gone, right? So no more Greenlaw, no more Al-Shaair, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't re-sign with the 49ers, but if they have the season that they're projected to have, it's a possibility that you lose not one linebacker, but 2 linebackers. And who did they really bring in, to kind of Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, and I don't know. It could be tricky. So I kind of get what you're saying. I don't know if I answered the question as far as it about being a win now. I think I'm with you, though. I think every season is win now. And you especially want to do it while your quarterback is cheap. That's when you want to win. That's why I'm so upset that we didn't play Trey Lance his first year, because now I felt like he could have went through the growing pains, even if we didn't make the playoffs last year, right? Went through the growing pains, got the season under his belt. I'm sure the banter about Trey Lance would be different, right? And then he would be so much well-groomed to go year 2. But now we got to kind of, wait and see.
Yeah. We've got a super chat here from Gavin Brown. I love salary contract stuff. It's my forte. D Ford will only save the 49ers. Yeah.
That's it. That's not a lot.
This is true. But the thing is, the 49ers, it's just a chance to move on, because the reason isn't necessarily financially. The reason is the 53-man roster. Are you going to carry a guy that isn't going to play a game for you because you don't want to lose out on an investment? Well, it's only $225,000. That is funds they can allocate elsewhere when it comes to a matter of that, right? Because some player might want some extra more money. And I'm not saying that some player wants $225,000 for one contract. I'm saying with the additional cap space they have as well, because the 49ers are in a cap crunch right now. They have to sign back some of their, some of their rookie contracts, and they have to find a way to make some money up. So this is a way, and it also clears a roster spot, and it's also a way to move on. John Lynch was fairly clear. They're going to designate him as a post-June 1st cut. So I expect that cut to happen soon.
Yeah, very, very, very soon. Very soon. And it sucks because, unfortunately, he just couldn't find a way to stay healthy. But when he was on the field, I tell you what, the defense was better. It was better. But like you said, at some point, you just have to cut your losses and you just have to move forward, right? Because if he's not going to be able to physically give you anything, it's time to move on from D Ford. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom brings up your point, right? How Mosley, it's not a big deal because we have Ward, Thomas, but we do have to re-sign Greenlaw and Al-Shaair. One thing, though, that we've seen from on-ball linebackers is that their contracts aren't as hefty as we believe them to be. I don't think Al-Shaair signs for more than $5 to $6 million. So I don't think that it would be as expensive. The one point you bring up that's good, though, is we're likely not going to retain both of them. That's why people have envisioned that Greenlaw might be traded this offseason, like Jonas Griffith was last year. I don't think we bring back both, but I do believe that we will bring back one of them.
And here's the thing. The 49ers win the Super Bowl this year. Those guys will probably come back and play for $5 million. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not the middle linebackers, right? And I'm not saying that they can't play middle, but they know their roles. You get the weak side and the strong side, right? And so we got our middle linebacker. You contracted him up, right? And so it's like, I'm with you on this. They're not going to demand a lot of money, but they're not going to demand a lot of money from us, but there might be a team out there that knows that Alshire can play middle linebacker, that knows that Dre Greenlaw can play middle linebacker, and they might not give him like that top tier middle linebacker money, but then the role might change. I mean, everyone wants to be the middle linebacker, right? Because you get to run the defense, right? Like that's kind of like you get to be the quarterback of the D. And so if they are getting a role change and a pay increase, it's probably that one of those guys won't come back. And if I had to pick a guy, it'd probably be Greenlaw.
Yeah. And one thing we saw this year, it obviously drafts change year to year. But one thing we saw this year, linebackers fell. Nakobe D went in the third round. Chad Muma fell. Leo Chanel fell. All of these guys fell. And what that means is one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? If the 49ers are looking to get a mid-round linebacker last year, like they got with the likes of Greenlaw back then in 2019 with the 5th round pick, they can get that. And so that's really what I've seen, and that's really what I anticipate in a way. If the 49ers can't get someone in free agency, like a player similar to Oren Burks or something like that next year, or if they can't bring back one of these guys, you can expect them to go after a linebacker in the draft because it's not as valuable in the draft. It's not like the position teams don't value it as much in the draft, so you might get talent a little later than you expect.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Shout out to Raphael 5629ers. Thank you for tuning in. And Breezy, I want to get to the kind of like the segment that I've been waiting for all stream long. We've got our favorite teams in the finals, man.
Here we go. Look at all these. If I'm the only Celtics fan in here, it's okay because I'll hold it down, man. I'll be on some Braveheart shit. I'll take on the world. I'm William Wallace. Yes. Let's go.
Real quick, everybody in the chat, make sure you drop your prediction, pretty much telling Breezy that his team's going to lose in the finals. Be sure to do that before we continue.
Hey, listen, Lakers, look. All I'm going to say is get yourselves ready for 7 games. It's what the Celtics do. They like to wear and tear on y'all. They like to wear and tear on teams, excuse me. Now, let's just point out some facts here, man. All right? Let's point out some facts. They split 1-1. All right? So the regular season, it was 1-1. State with the Warriors won at home, Celtics went at home, right? It's just kind of how it went. In both games, the teams that won scored 111 points. I will say this, though. And the Celtics lost, they still scored 107 points, I believe. So we didn't lose by that many, but when y'all came to us, we whipped that ass. It was like 111 to 89. I don't know who played in that game. Probably there was no Clay or whatever, but I'm just saying, it's not going to be a cakewalk for either team, okay? But I'm excited to watch what Golden State is going to be able to do against this Celtics defense that switches on everything. And so I'm just waiting. It's going to be dope. I don't expect 130 points. That shit ain't going to happen. Not against the Celtics. But I can see some 110s, maybe 100, nothing more than 110 points. And Curry's going to be Curry. I think in order to beat the Golden State Warriors, you just got to let Curry be Curry and take out the rest of the team. At the end of the day, Curry he ain't dropping 100. He ain't Wilt Chamberlain out there. So let Curry shoot. Let him do what don't let him shoot, but just let him be himself. Like, let him do what he does. Take out Clay. Take out Jordan Poole. I think the X factor for you guys, though, is going to be Wiggins. I'm just going to keep it a buck.
Yeah, no, you're right. And one thing I was looking at, right, in these two was rebounding, because that was one struggle that the Warriors had, right? When you look at it, that's why I thought the Celtics would be a better matchup. Now, I preferred if we played, the Heat. I preferred if we played the Celtics just for entertainment purposes, but I thought the Heat would have been a better matchup because when you look at the regular season, the Heat were 22nd in rebounding while the Warriors were top 10. However, the Celtics, they're a top 5 rebounding team. They're a better rebounding team, at least in the regular season. Now, in the playoffs, the mentality is different, right? We've seen Kevon Looney come out and rebound the hell out of his mind. The Warriors now have eclipsed the Celtics in postseason rebounding. We'll see how that translates to the series. But you guys have some dogs with you, right? You got Robert Williams, you got Grant Williams, you got Al Horford. So you've got rebounding there. It's now to the Warriors. Not only can they make shots, but can they get those offensive rebounds, sustain possessions, and then defensively, can they rebound to not let the Celtics have second possessions? That's the main task, because I think whoever really wins the rebounding battle in this series is going to be the victor in this series.
Yeah. I see my man Simon's thing. He's talking about quality of depth. And I like that he put the word quality in front of depth. The Celtics have proven that they can win with 7-man rotation. I haven't watched many of your games because you kind of blew the Mavericks out. So what's your
Right.
rotation looking like? Because that's what it's going to come down to.
Right. So I do know that the Celtics actually have a 7-game. And before I get to ours, I want to say one thing, because a lot of people have been talking about depth, and how the Celtics don't have enough depth. And I understand that argument. I definitely do. But in the playoffs, it's not 10-man rotations. It's not even 9-man rotations.
No.
It's 7 to 8-man rotations at the maximum. You'll see, like we saw Jimmy Butler just play 48 minutes in a game 7.
48 minutes, bro.
Game 7 too.
After playing 46 minutes the game before, yo.
Right. And so really what the point is that teams aren't going to deploy a ton of players. And so for the Warriors, our rotation, we obviously got our guys in Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Green, and then we've got Kevon Looney, and then we'll rotate certain players in. You expect Gary Payton to probably play in the series, especially because of the defensive battle against a guy like Jaylen Brown, maybe even against a guy like Marcus Smart. We've all obviously had the 2 rookies play a good amount in Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga. Both had pretty good games in the last game we played. Nemanja Bjelica has saw an uptick in minutes at times. We don't know if Andre Iguodala will return. If he does, then that's the case. And then obviously we've got the 2 guys, our biggest guys on the bench, in Jordan Poole and Otto Porter. Those 2 guys, obviously Porter with his rebounding, and then Poole is the all-around player, the good scorer. I think that is that'll be kind of like somewhat of our X factors off the bench. So depth-wise, the Warriors do have it. It's just a matter of who do they deploy in these rotations, because at the end of the day, it's not 10 players on the court. It's 5 on the court at a time.
Yeah, and I think you're underestimating the Celtics' quality of depth, right? Because now all of a sudden the kid finally came to life, man. I've been waiting for this kid to come to life, and Derek White all season long, and he showed up in the playoffs, man. He particularly showed up in the playoffs against the Miami Heat. If Derek White was able to attack the basket against the Miami Heat defense, and this is no disrespect to your team's defense, but I think Miami had a better defense than you. The Eastern teams just had pretty good defensive teams this year, like Boston and Miami were in the top 2. I think they were top 2, right? And I'm not saying your team is a bad defensive team, but what I'm saying is
top 2,
if you're allowing Derek White to get inside to the paint, that's going to be a problem. And not only that, he's actually starting to make plays. And so, look, I don't think you can defend Tatum like Miami. And it's but I gotta figure out how y'all gonna do it. Because here's the thing: put Wiggins on Tatum. I want y'all to put Wiggins on Tatum. That would be y'all best bet, to put Wiggins on Tatum. And if Tatum's able to switch out of that, good fucking luck. Good luck. Good luck. And so so the reason why I want you to put Wiggins on Tatum is because if you put Wiggins on Tatum, he's gonna need all that energy to stop Tatum, and then he won't have any energy to score, which is everything that I want. Because Wiggins, to me, is y'all X factor. Like, that's the guy that just came to life. Like, all season long, he's been the X. Like, he's been the guy. I love Jordan Poole. Don't get it twisted. He's been a guy that can come off the bench and keep you afloat. But that's what our Derek White does now, right? So you have Jordan Poole, we have Derek White, right? But now you talk about the number 1 defensive player in the league, Marcus Smart. He locking up somebody. Like, and don't get it twisted. Curry can hit shots. So as long as, I don't care if Curry hit the shot, as long as Marcus Smart is in the facial structure of Curry, I mean, in the nostrils, and he hits it, just Curry. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to see Curry walking in the threes like they let Jimmy Butler do. What the fuck was that? Like, just walking up, pulling up, and shooting a 3. That's when I knew they were tired and they were having brain farts. But it's gonna be an energetic game. It's gonna come down to which team has the most energy at the end. They're gonna make Looney run a lot. Are you sure Looney's gonna be able to keep up?
That's a
And then
question. That's a good
and,
question. He did in the last series with extended minutes, but who knows? Can fatigue really impact? And the one thing that I want to say is I think it honestly comes down to the secondary players. I'm not saying the bench players, but the secondary guys. Because both teams, when you've seen the Celtics in this last series, Jimmy Butler went off. He went off like a crazy man, and they
2 games.
still lost the series, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Warriors. Luka Doncic was going crazy for a good portion of the series, and the Warriors still won pretty comfortably. So even with those stars playing as well as they did on both sides, the other team kind of won because of the overall defense, because of the overall structure of the team. Now, how will the secondary stars respond in both series?
Good question.
Obviously, the Warriors are favorites, given that they've got a juggernaut of certain players that can like cohesively play together. So it's how can your five really match up against, or your extra four really match up against those extra four? That's kind of like the real question that really will kind of dictate the series as well.
And it's a great question, right? Because look, it's good. It's all right. So it's gonna be so cool, right? Because if I'm the Celtics, I'm putting Al Horford at the 5. I'm putting Robert Williams at the 4. I want Horford on Looney. I want veteran on young guy. You get in his head, and then that's what you do. But then they switch so often at the 4 and 5 spot. So when you
Right.
talk about those other 4, now we're talking about Derek White, Grant Williams, right? We're talking about guys that are going to be able to come off the bench. And so like Grant Williams' energy is ridiculous. Like he, in my opinion, and I'm not comparing him, and he's nowhere to the skill level of a Draymond Green, right? No. But he gives you the Draymond Green energy. You know what I'm saying? He's the guy that take the weird fouls, the dirty fouls, talk shit to the refs, like all of that stuff, right? And so I'm excited. Like I'm really excited, man. I think it goes 7 games. Both teams got defenses. Your team is the better shooting team. I will never argue that. But the Celtics can get to the basket. Like, how good is your team defending guys getting to the basket? Dallas don't got the slashers like the Celtics got. If the Celtics see that they're not hitting their shots from the outside, Jaylen Brown trying to dunk on somebody. Marcus Smart going to the paint. Like it's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Definitely. And the one thing you're saying, Derek White in a way is your X factor. For him, it's consistency. Can he be consistent? Because at times he was very much struggling. At times he did have good games, right?
Yeah.
You saw it towards the later stretch of that series, the last series. He was playing well, but overall in the postseason, only 38% from the field, only 28% from 3. If he's kind of wavering in the way that he plays, it'll be hard for the Celtics to gain a rhythm. Now, if he can be consistent, if he doesn't settle as much and tries to drive and create for his teammates as well as get buckets, then obviously you get to the foul line. You create issues where teams have to rely more on that depth.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really cool. I give it to you. I think you guys have the depth. It's just going to come down to how is Boston going to force you to use that depth? Because if the Celtics find a way to like destroy your depth, your starters got to come back in the game. Like, so it's going to be cool. And I see that Nate is saying Boston turns the ball over. They do. They have issues with communication. And then
That's the big thing with the Warriors too. They have like when
See,
they
I didn't
lose,
know
they
that.
turn the ball over. Yeah.
I didn't know that. But see, but Boston does forces there. They do dumbass turnovers, right? Like, so Jaylen Brown he sees 3 people, right? Like, and I will say that Miami in this series did a really great job at disguising coverages, right? It was crazy, right? So Jaylen Brown saw 1-on-1. Then all of a sudden, the 2 other defenders come out of nowhere. Next thing you know, he's trying to get through that 3 gap, and it's a turnover. Like, it is what it is. I'm hoping Jaylen Brown and Ime Udoka goes and sits with Brown and says, listen, sir, if you do that shit in the finals, your ass is on the bench. Like, because you can't do it at this stage. And I think he knows that. But Tatum was turning the ball over. Marcus Smart throws the ball over people's heads out of bounds. It's just, you can't play a game of basketball without mistakes, guys, right? Can't play. I didn't underestimate Wiggins. Who did I just say was the motherfucking X factor? Wiggins.
Yeah.
Force him to play defense, though. It should decrease his offense. That's all I'm saying. Force him to play D. The difference between who did Wiggins have to guard in the Mavs series, bro?
Wiggins, he was on Luka for a good amount of
But Luka
time.
still went off, right?
Yeah, he had a good game. Pretty good series. I mean, shooting wise, it's questionable in terms of percentages, but I mean, that's what you expect with the amount of volume he shot with.
But Tatum, he meant for me to finish my argument. Don't underestimate Wiggins. The rest of the team is really good at finishing inside, even Curry and Poole. In my opinion, key to Dallas series was could get points in the paint. Yeah, but see, that's the thing. They could get points in the paint. I love that you mentioned that. If Robert Williams is healthy, the points in the paint won't happen.
Right. That's the big deal. Because
So you guys are going to shoot. You are the shooting team. I'm scared because y'all can shoot. Like everybody can shoot. Otto Porter can shoot. Freaking Poole can shoot. Probably freaking Gary Payton Jr. can shoot if he got a chance. Like y'all can shoot. You know what I mean? That's going to be crazy. Which I hope the Celtics don't get in the mindset to try to keep up with the shooting. No. Just play basketball. Don't try to shoot.
Yeah.
Now, if the Celtics are on, good luck.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, here's what I'll say. There are going to be games in this series where there are going to be shootouts, and the Celtics will have to keep up with the Warriors offensively. Best team, right? The Warriors are the best team offensively in the playoffs. 114.5 points per game. That leads the NBA in the playoffs. However, there are also going to be games where it's going to be a defensive showdown. Both teams are pretty stout defensively.
Yeah.
The Celtics are in the top. The Warriors are around the middle of the pack in the playoffs, that is. And so I think they're going to be both of these games, right? Because we've seen the games where the Warriors have gone cold at times. We've seen the games where the Warriors just go crazy offensively. And so which balance is going to overrule, which side is going to overrule the other side? That's kind of also going to dictate it, right? Which team can get more in a rhythm of how they play? If the Celtics can control game pace, if they slow it down rather than like you said, right? A good amount of those not lazy, but bad turnovers come because they're not playing at their pace, where you just go into situations without thinking. If the Celtics try and play at the Warriors' pace, I think the Warriors win. However, if they can dim it down, I think it becomes more of a battle. Those 7 games like we both discussed earlier today.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I love about playoff basketball. It's unpredictable, right? You can't take anything you did in a regular season accountable because what you said at the very beginning of this segment is the rotations are shorter now. And so it's going to be a totally different game plan for each team. And whatever you did against the Mavericks ain't going to work against the Celtics. And whatever the Celtics did against the Heat, it's not going to work for the Golden State Warriors. So it's going to be really cool to watch, man. I tell you what, Thursday night, I'm going to do a pregame show for the game, and we're going to have some fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And one last thing before we tune off, free throw shooting. Let's see how that works because I think free throw shooting might have to matter a good amount of the series.
See, I didn't want to have this conversation, bro, because that means that you're saying y'all getting to the line. So that means the ref's going to be cheating right off the rip.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying
never get calls, bro. I don't understand how in the last game, bro.
The Celtics have gotten more calls than the Warriors in the playoffs.
What team in ever history of basketball has ever had 6 offensive fouls in one game? Help me, yo, find that shit. 6, bro, 6. Not 1, not 2, not 4, not even 5. 6 offensive fouls. None of them were overturned. But the moment they offensive foul, it's overturned. Yeah, it's a block.
Let's be honest. Like, the calls were terrible. That was one of the worst officiated games I've seen. That last one was an offensive foul. I understand that you have to be consistent, but when you send it up to replay, you got to say the truth. It was an offensive foul, but the other one was very questionable.
All right, so 1, they got right. But 5, they got wrong. I'm sorry, man. Everything's not an offensive foul. There was one where they said Tatum pushed off of the dude. He didn't even extend his arm. He went by him and dunked. They took the points off and then called an offensive foul. So now Tatum gets a foul. I need the refs and the finals, Foster, Tony Brothers, all y'all Mickey Fickies, I need y'all to go smoke a blunt, do something, get nice before the game because y'all got to let these boys play basketball. Don't nobody want to see fouls. Nobody. Unless somebody get a bloody nose. Like, that's it. Bloody nose, bloody elbow to the head, blood. Only time we should see fouls is if there's blood involved. I'm sorry.
But the reason I brought up free throws, the Celtics have actually shot more free throws in the NBA or in the playoffs than the Warriors have. The Celtics
Oh,
ranked
really?
7th. Yeah, the
Wow.
Warriors are actually a bottom 5, 6
Well, that's
team.
because y'all be blowing teams out by 40 points at the end of the first quarter.
But
Like,
the
that's
thing
why.
is, the Warriors they're normally a pretty damn good free throw shooting team, right? We've
They
got
are.
the 2 best free throw shooters. We have not been good in the playoffs. We're a bottom 5 team in the playoffs, while the Celtics are a top 5. I think they're top 5 team in the playoffs free throw shooting wise. So if it gets to that might dictate a game as well. Like, it might not be
That's a
much,
good
but I mean,
point,
one
man.
game is one game. So we'll see how it goes.
That's a good point, man. It's gonna be a great series. Y'all better get ready for 2 weeks of basketball. That's all I'm gonna say. We're gonna
Yeah.
take this to the end of June, y'all. End of June.
Yeah. But man, it's been a great stream today, as usual. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back next week with our regular schedule. For now, me and Breezie are not friends. We will not speak to each other unless it's basketball related, because he votes for a team that does not play well. So screw the Celtics, Warriors in 4. We'll see you guys next week.
What the freak? Don't you end this podcast? I
I'm
know he did
joking.
not just say Warriors in 4. Okay, I see where you're going. I was gonna ask them to congratulate you because you graduate on Thursday, but fuck it.
Okay,
Let's
fine.
go.
We'll go back to reasonableness.
Celtics in 5. There it is right there, man. Thanks for tuning in. I'm out. Peace.
Real quick. Let's see. We got actually a question. I saw this earlier and then I forgot about it. Let's go up. How do I pump out articles like that? And then second question, what is our favorite source to use for stats? I mean, I just like writing. That's just what it is. I mean, I got a job to do, so I gotta cover the team how I cover it. So I gotta write about that. But yeah, I mean, that's how it is. And then whatever database is available to us, that's where I use for stats.
Yeah, man, we use just about every database.
Really, all sorts of things.
Oh, like there's just so many different ones, man. And it's funny because then we're using ones to check the other ones. Like some stats data might be one off, and you'd be like, come on, this can't be right. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just so many different things that we use out there. But yeah, this kid is a writing machine. You'll get like one article a week from me, which is I'm trying to get back onto that schedule. Not because it takes me long to write, but I'm always creating content, right? And so I like being in front of the camera, but I love to sit when I get a minute and sit down and sip whatever I'm sipping on. Then I could just go to work. But they be putting out, man, listen, y'all fire. Look, 49ers Web Zone is where it's at.
Oh yeah, 49ers Web Zone, best media source of all of the 49ers news
ever. All time.
Shout out David. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you all for the congratulations for my graduation. It's on Thursday, so I hope the Warriors win on Thursday. So it's a nice little cherry on top. Breezie, thank you so much. We will catch you guys next.